Subscribe, fuckers. Now let's get in the video. How California became so violent. A deep dive into the Golden States. California, home to Hollywood dreams, Silicon Valley innovations, and breathtaking coastlines. But behind the glitz and glamour lies a darker side. A history of violence that has shaped its streets and culture. How did one of the most iconic states in the US become a hotspot for crime and violence? Let's uncover the layers. To understand California's violent history, we need to go back to the 19th century. During the gold rush of the mid-1800s, tens of thousands of people flocked to the state, searching for fortune. But with this boom came lawlessness. Towns sprung up overnight with little law enforcement, leading to violent disputes over gold, property, and power. Vigilante justice was common, and organized crime syndicates began to emerge. In the 1920s and 30s, Prohibition fueled the rise of organized crime in California. Bootleggers controlled illegal alcohol distribution, and rival gangs clashed violently to dominate the black market. Los Angeles, in particular, became a hub for gangsters like Mickey Cohen, who orchestrated gambling rings and racketeering. After World War II, California experienced a population explosion, but not everyone prospered. As poverty and racial inequality festered in urban areas, street gangs began to form. Groups like the Crips and Bloods and Hispanics emerged in the 1960s, born out of community protection but quickly evolving into violent organizations involved in drug trade and turf wars. The crack epidemic of the 1980s. The 1980s brought one of California's darkest chapters, the crack cocaine epidemic. The drug flooded inner-city neighborhoods, leading to skyrocketing addiction rates and fueling gang violence. Los Angeles became infamous for its bloody turf wars between the Crips, Bloods, and other gangs vying for control of the drug trade. Mass incarceration and the Three Strikes Law. In response to rising violence, California implemented strict policies like the Three Strikes Law in 1994, which mandated life sentences for repeat offenders. While crime rates eventually declined, the policy disproportionately impacted minority communities, creating a cycle of incarceration and disillusionment. Tensions between law enforcement and California's diverse communities have also contributed to the state's history of violence. The Rodney King incident in 1991 and the subsequent LA riots highlighted long-standing issues of police brutality and systemic racism, igniting one of the most violent uprisings in U.S. history. While California's crime rates have declined since their peak in the 1990s, violence remains a persistent issue. From mass shootings to gang violence and homelessness crisis, the state continues to grapple with systemic issues like income inequality, housing shortages, and mental health. Despite its troubled past, California is taking steps to address its issues. Grassroots organizations, police reform efforts, and investments in education and mental health aim to break the cycle of violence. But can the Golden State truly leave its violent history behind? California's story is one of extremes. Dreams and nightmares, progress and struggle. Its violence is not just a product of history but a reflection of broader societal challenges. The question is, what can we learn and how do we move forward? The answer lies in the hands of its people. Long before the Spanish arrived, California was home to over 300,000 Native Americans from more than 100 tribes, including the Chumash, Miwok, and Ohlone. These tribes thrived for thousands of years, creating complex societies and living in harmony with the land. Their culture was deeply tied to nature, relying on hunting, fishing, and gathering. California's written history begins with Spanish colonization in 1769. Explorer Gaspar de Portola and missionary Junipero Serra established the first mission in San Diego. Over the next 50 years, 21 missions were built along the coast, stretching from San Diego to Sonoma. These missions aimed to convert Native Americans to Christianity but often resulted in forced labor, disease, and the destruction of indigenous cultures. In 1821, Mexico gained independence from Spain, and California became a Mexican territory. During this era, large land grants known as ranchos were given to settlers, creating a cattle-based economy. The vaqueros, or cowboys, became iconic figures of California's history. However, this period was short-lived as tensions grew between Mexico and the United States. The late 19th century saw the rise of industry, driven by the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad. California became a key hub for agriculture, trade, and manufacturing. Immigrants, particularly from China, played a critical role in this transformation but faced significant discrimination, including the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. In the early 20th century, California became synonymous with entertainment. The film industry took root in Hollywood, turning Los Angeles into the movie capital of the world. Icons like Charlie Chaplin and Greta Garbo brought the silver screen to life, solidifying California's global cultural influence. After the war, California experienced unprecedented growth. Suburbs sprawled, freeways were built, and the middle class flourished. But the 1960s and 70s brought change, as California became the epicenter of counterculture movements. From the Summer of Love in San Francisco to the civil rights protests in Los Angeles, the state was at the forefront of social and cultural revolutions. In the late 20th century, California transformed again, this time into a technological powerhouse. The rise of Silicon Valley revolutionized the global economy, with companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook shaping the digital age. This era cemented California's status as a leader in innovation. Today, California remains one of the most influential places in the world, but it faces significant challenges. Wildfires, housing crisis, and income inequality loom large. Yet, the state continues to lead in areas like renewable energy, progressive politics, and cultural trends. Make sure you subscribe